I am Sean Webb, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Zach Poitras, and this is Your Superior Self.
I'm Andy Mant, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Sue Jackson, and this is Your Superior Self.
I'm Ginny Sarasvati, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
What is up, Superior Nation? Welcome back to Your Superior Self. I'm Trey Downs, and I hope everyone had an amazing 4th of July weekend. I enjoyed every second of it, trying to feel normal in these times that we're going through. It just felt good to hang out with some friends and family, hang out with my wife and kids, and just enjoy them. It was an amazing day for us, and I hope you guys had one as well. Today, I have an amazing conversation with Josh Onysko. He's the founder and CEO of Pangea Organics, which is a skin and body care company that he launched out of his garage in 2001. And I love his products. He just launched Alpine Provisions. I had an opportunity to test out his products, and I love them. They're pure ingredients, which I really love because a lot of the big brand names have a lot of chemicals in it, and what you put in your skin eventually becomes a part of you. And if it's harmful chemicals, then you'll see long-term effects. And I'm all about the pure ingredients and trying to clean and not put those harmful chemicals in my body. So check them out. He's going plastic free, and we talk about that in this conversation and some of the statistics that's associated with our plastic usage around the world. It's pretty phenomenal. I was not aware to how much plastic we actually go through, and some of the tips on how to move forward in your everyday lives when we recycle. I didn't know this, but if plastic has a moving part, like a deodorant stick, you can't recycle that. I didn't know that. And that's huge when you think about the amount of plastic that we go through. Where does it go? It ends up somewhere. It goes right into the oceans. And we got to be more aware of that and conscious of that when we're out there buying these products. And his mission is to bring more awareness to that and try to help cut down our plastic usage. And we talk about a lot of other things too. His journey is incredible. It's so uncommon. He's traveled to more than 60 countries, and here's a little preview of what's to come.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the fear is just not following that intuition that you have. You know, it's like the old saying, like, love what you do, never work a day in your life, is really true. I mean, my feeling after traveling, or I've been to almost 60 countries now. I love talking to random people. I truly believe that everyone actually knows what they want to be doing.
That is some powerful stuff. And there's a ton of great quotes in this interview that I think that you guys will benefit from. Quotes, conversation, just the whole vibe. And I learned a lot through our conversation, and I know that you guys will too. So without further ado, here is Josh Onysko.
My name is Joshua Onysko, and I'm here with Your Superior Self.
Josh, what's up, my man? How are you?
I'm doing great.
So what do you got going on today, man?
Well, it's a good day to be a soap maker because I've been making soap and have various soap brands for the past almost 20 years now. So I've been up in the mountains. I have a little farm above Boulder, Colorado, with fainting goats and chickens and a cat, and just been working, just trying to keep up with the pace and get soap out to the people. Soap.
So do you live on a farm? Like, is that your, you chose to live on a farm?
Yeah. So I'm actually originally from Rhode Island, and I moved out to the mountains the late 90s to Jackson Hole, and then moved to Boulder. And I just prefer, because I travel a lot for work, and I'm usually in cities, and I love cities. But when I come home, I just like to come home to the mountains. I have no neighbors. It's pretty quiet. Yeah.
So what else? What kind of animals do you have on the farm?
I have 3 dwarf fainting goats. I have 32 chickens.
32 chickens.
32 chickens.
That's it?
About 8,000 bees and a cat.
What kind of chickens? I grew up on well, I didn't grow up on one. My grandfather owned a chicken farm in Delaware, so we've had long chicken houses. I mean, hundreds of chickens. What kind of chickens do you have?
I kind of I have about probably 14 different varieties. They're all laying they're egg laying chickens, and it's funny because I'm actually vegan. I don't even eat eggs. I raise them because they're fun to have around, and I give the eggs to a lot of friends of mine.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right. So what interests me about your bio when I was reading it, there was actually two things. Well, there's more like three, but just starting out, like you left school at 9 to pursue acting. Is that right?
Yeah, so, I mean, by kindergarten, by first grade, I realized I really didn't like school. And I think a lot of kids say they didn't like school, but I really, really didn't like school. I started butting heads with teachers, by the time my nap time and coloring was over and I had to go to first grade. And I think it was fourth grade, and I was trying to figure out ways to get the hell out of school. And I saw an ad in the paper for child actors needed at the big theater in Prague. I convinced my mom to take me to this audition, and we showed up, and there were hundreds of kids trying out for, I think, what was 4 parts. And my mother tells the story that she got there and like had this moment. She's like, "Oh, Josh was going to be so disappointed," because all the kids there were like those kids whose parents really wanted them to be actors, not the kids themselves. And they were like putting makeup on. And my mother was like, I don't know, I have no idea what to do. But she was supporting me, and I went in, I auditioned, and a couple days later, they called my mom and they gave me the part. And I was able to leave school for, a majority of the year, like through the winter at least. And I think I did 3 or 4 plays at that theater. And I kept just leaving the theater once I learned my lines and started venturing around the city. And my mom caught wind of this and got pretty upset. I went back to school, but I just kept leaving and not really enjoying school, failing everything pretty much except for art. And by the time I was 15, I told my parents, like, as soon as I turned 16, I'm out. There's no way I'm going to the school anymore. And at that point, they were all for it because I had been working basically since I was 7. I started delivering papers and then went into acting and started, landscaping jobs. And I always loved working. And, my parents really instilled the knowledge of the value of the dollar. Nothing was given to us. We had to work for things if we wanted them. So I think they knew that I was going to continue working. I think they were a little worried, especially when I bought a VW bus and started following the dead. But
but you also had some crazy ventures in there, right? Like, I mean, you travel around the world. Like, at one point you were selling fake IDs, Tokyo, selling different items. I mean, that's not typical, bro. Like, I mean, you don't hear that, right? Like, I've done some crazy things in my life, but I'm not, I wasn't selling fake IDs and like fake Rolexes in Tokyo.
Well, I started selling fake IDs when I was 14, still living in my parents' house, and made quite a living doing that until I sold an ID to the local sheriff's son. He got busted, but his dad called me and said, "Shut it down." Rhode Island is a very not what you know, who you know kind of state.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of adventures. I moved to Vermont, my VW bus. My bus ended up getting police, and I moved to Block Island, and I sold a Beetle that I had restored and towed a speedboat to San Francisco with my Jeep and my dog for a guy who paid me to tow it out there, and moved to Jackson Hole, moved to Costa Rica, Nicaragua, stayed up all night on the beaches on the Caribbean side of Costa Rica, waiting for the giant sea turtles to come out of the ocean and lay their eggs. and we were chasing poachers away with rusty machetes to steal the eggs.
I mean, but like seriously, man, like I don't that is uncommon. Like that is an uncommon lifestyle. Like I mean, how do you even like begin? Like, I mean, is it just you're following your, I don't know, you're just following what's going on in your life? Or are you just going from one whim to the next? Like, how does that work?
I mean, until I started Pangea, it was kind of the follow your bliss mentality. And when I was living on a ranch in Wyoming outside of Jackson Hole in 1999. And I woke up from a dream that I was riding on the rooftops of the trains in India. And I think it was a photo I saw at Nat Geo. And I love trains. And 4 hours later, I was booking a one-way ticket to Bombay from JFK. And I called my mom and said, "Hey, I'm going to India. I have no idea when I'm coming back, but I'm going to come home and see you before I leave." And she had bought a coffee table book, How to Make Your Own Soap, How to Make Handmade Soap. And I read it. I was like, what the hell is soap made out of? I don't know. I grew up on ivory. You know? And I read it, and you can go and buy all the ingredients at a hardware store and in a natural food store. And I came home and surprised my mom with like gloves and safety goggles. We made a batch of soap. I took off to India. I started using the soap, and I was kind of blown away how good it felt next to ivory, and all the conventional soaps leave that weird film on your skin and chemical smells. And I just thought that was part of bathing. But the soap just felt amazing. And I ended up traveling for 2 years. I circumferenced India, Nepal, Tibet, had a whole adventure in Kashmir, came back to the States, made 800 bars of soap in a beer keg with a paint mixer. And I hitched a ride with a friend to Oregon and sold them in 3 days at the Oregon Country Fair, and then hitchhiked up to Bellingham and jumped on a boat to Alaska. And I spent several months just hitchhiking through Alaska in the wilderness, camping on the side of the road, camping in avoiding a lot of bears, learning about beer culture, and ended up hitchhiking all the way back to Wyoming. And I got down there, and I couldn't stay still. I just had this thirst for adventure in me that I couldn't shake. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get a job and settle down. And I ended up buying a one-way ticket to Hong Kong. And in 3 weeks, I was in Hong Kong teaching English. And it was fun. And Hong Kong was an amazing place to journey around, but there wasn't enough oddity there. And I ended up flying up to Tokyo based on a friend's recommendation. And I get to Tokyo, and it's like 2:00 in the morning, and I can't sleep. So I start wandering around Tokyo, and I see this guy, and he's like dancing on the side of the road, and he's selling watches and rings and Louis Vuitton bags. And I go up and start talking to him, and he's this Japanese guy. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm selling all this stuff. And I was like, how does this work? And he's like, well, it's kind of like you're kind of working for the Yakuza, kind of working for the Israelis. And I was like, I want to do this. And he called up his boss, and his boss took me out for sushi, and we ended up drinking sake till sunrise. And he gave me a van, a wad of cash, a cell phone, and a corner in the red light district.
Jesus.
And I was just slinging Frank Mueller watches and Rolexes and Louis Vuitton bags, and had a whole 6-month adventure. And it was amazing, just staying up till 3:00 in the morning. And I had a girlfriend there that I met, and we'd go out dancing and raves all night, and just dealing with the police and dealing with the Yakuza and meeting people from all over the world. And one day the police kept coming around more often, and I was like, something's going on. And I booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok, and I left 2 days later. And that night, all of my friends got arrested that were there.
No way. Talk about luck, man.
Yeah, I was like, so then I was living in Thailand for a while, and I got a motorcycle and headed up to Cambodia. And I was kind of at the end of my mental capacity of living out of a backpack and just seeing extreme poverty and constantly being in other places, and started kind of having a little bit of a breakdown. And I was in Angkor Wat where the temples are, and I was smoking a joint sitting on a rock, and I'm like, all right, what's the next move? And I was with a really good friend of mine, Tom, and he's like, you make amazing soap, you should start a soap company. And that's kind of what I was thinking about. And I was like, yeah, I should start a fucking soap company. And I moved back to the States and moved to Boulder. And I kept making bar soap and beer kegs and selling them at farmers markets, and got a warehouse. Couldn't afford the rent, so I started having these huge raves once a month to pay the rent. And we had this huge soap factory going. And before you know it, we were the second largest cold processed soap factory in the United States.
That is amazing, man. Like do you realize how like uncommon that life is though? Like, do you realize that like how crazy that story is? Like,
yeah, I do. I keep trying to like one up myself on how weird it's going to get, because it keeps getting.
but like, do you ever fear anything? I mean, it seems like you get this, you have this instinct of following your curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the fear is just not following that intuition that you have. It's like the old saying, like, love what you do, never work a day in your life, is really true. I mean, my feeling after traveling, or I've been to almost 60 countries now. I love talking to random people. I truly believe that everyone actually knows what they want to be doing.
Oh, wow.
And what's really interesting is from the time we're born, we have these both self-imposed and imposed from the world around us fears that we onion layer around this thing that we're born to do. And if you ask people, they have this moment that you see in their eyes that they really actually know that they know. But those onion layers are so deep and so real and so painful and layered with pain and guilt and shame and fear. It's just over and over and over again, that it's so hard to dig through those layers. It's so difficult, and it's a process, and it's a gift you have to give to yourself to take that journey.
Born to do. What do you think you were born to do?
I'm born to do exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Creating, innovating, formulating, farming, painting, cooking, just like all the things that I want to do, I'm doing. And
That's powerful, man. I love that. I mean,
try to get in my way.
To be able to find what, fires you up. I mean, that is the, life is uncertainty, and to find what you're meant to do in that uncertainty is just, it's beautiful, man. But let's get back to your company here. Soap. So you make amazing soap, and not just any type of soap, right? Like, this is legit. I don't want to say organic. I don't know a lot about it. That's why I wanted to have you on to kind of educate me a little bit about it. So what I understand about some of the not healthcare, but some of the
body care,
that great wording. Some of the body care that I use is there's so much chemicals in it, right? Like everything that's bad for you, deodorant, shampoo, a lot of the big brands have a lot of chemicals in it, and you're doing the exact opposite. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So what Alpine Provisions is based on is that nature has all the things that we need to take care of ourselves. And soap, the art of saponification, is 10,000 years old. And people have been taking alkali, which used to be wood ash, and fat, and combining it to make soap for 10 or 12,000 years. And soap, is one of the reasons that we have evolved. Without soap, we probably would have been taken out by a virus 10,000 years ago, and soap is a very amazing natural chemical invention that naturally takes dirt and oil and viruses and bacteria and washes them off your skin and your cooking utensils, your pots and your pans and your clothes. Just imagine if we didn't have soap, like how weird the world would be. We would be filthy, filthy, filthy animals. And
You'd be French, right?
and I say that, I'm like, obviously there's tribes all over the world that exist without soap, but they're in small numbers. But we have 8 billion people on Earth. We would not be here today without soap. So for the first 10,000 years, soap was a combination of an alkali and a fat, which when you combine those two things, it's called saponification, which creates soap. And a bar soap, people stopped using bar soap like 15, 20 years ago. The bar soap industry tanked because all of a sudden body washes came around and people thought it was cleaner, but actually there's less bacteria on a bar soap in a public bathroom than in the actual plastic hand
Really?
dispenser, because bacteria can grow on plastic, whereas nothing can grow on soap. It's too alkali. So it just kills things instantly. But in the 1940s, I believe Procter & Gamble started synthesizing surfactants. And a surfactant is a surface active agent, and that's where sodium lauryl sulfate and cocamidopropylbutane, DEAs, and all these synthetic foaming agents came around. And large companies started realizing they could make a lot more money and start mass producing these detergents and replacing them for people's natural soap. There's many problems with this. A lot of them are really toxic to humans. Tons of them are toxic to our environment. Now, people say, I say to people, I'm like, okay, like look at that, I won't name any brands, but that, mass market body wash thing you're using. And look how many chemicals are in there. And now imagine several billion people taking a shower, and that's washing down the drain. And where do you think that goes? That ends up in our rivers and our oceans and our streams, and it's toxic. It's like, we have soap. Soap is amazing. It breaks down naturally in our environment. So what we make is called Castile Soap. And originally, Castile Soap meant it was soap made from the Castile region of Spain, and it was primarily made out of 100% olive oil. But over the years, the natural industry commandeered the term Castile to really just tell customers, this is real soap. This is when you take natural plant oils and an alkali and create soap. So not only is that soap amazing for you and the environment, but it also doesn't dry your skin out. It lasts forever. It's incredibly concentrated, 2 to 3 times more than anything you can buy from a mass market brand. And there's a bunch of us that are just pioneering it and bringing it back and getting more and more people to realize how amazing natural soap can be.
So going plastic free, is that going back to the bars of soap?
No, well, yes and no. So Alpine Provisions started from 3 years ago. I was in Joshua Tree I go out there once a year in April for a psychedelic journey, just to try to
Oh yeah, buddy. That's what I'm talking about.
clear my mind and just, again, having that moment of what's my next move? What's the next innovation? What's the next thing I can do? Why am I here? I'm not just here to make soap. And I had this idea that when I was 17 and I got my VW bus and moved up to Vermont with my dog, I'd never seen a trailhead. And I just got my dog, put him on a leash, started walking down this trail. And I was a couple miles in, it started getting dark, and it's like, holy shit, it's completely silent. I had never heard silence in my entire life. And it changed my life forever. I forever became a mountain guy and just loved living in the mountains, exploring the mountains, going on long overland motorcycle trips, camping, climbing, hiking. And so when I was in Joshua Tree in that moment, I thought to myself, there's millions of kids that don't have the means to ever experience any of this nature. So how do we ask future generations to give 2 shits about the environment if they don't have any experience with it? So I decided in that moment to start a scholarship fund that sends disadvantaged youth to Outward Bound programs, which are these amazing leadership survival skill programs in the Rocky Mountains in the summer. And then I decided to start a company to fund that scholarship fund. And I thought, well, what's this brand going to be about? It's going to be about affordable, high quality, organic products with cool packaging. And I wanted to launch plastic free because at that point, I just started becoming woefully aware of the massive plastic problem in our world. But as I dove into that project, I realized how incredibly difficult it was going to be. And so I launched with 100% post-consumer plastic, which means we're diverting plastic from landfills and creating bottles. But me and my team worked tirelessly for a year to create an entirely plastic-free line. And so we learned a lot of things through this journey. This fact blew my mind. Plastic was invented in 1927, 28. It started being used in food products in the 30s. And in the 70s, it just exploded. There was this whole movement of like squeezable and resealable and like all these things that used to be in glass and aluminum just started moving to plastic. In the past 97 years, humans have put the mass equivalent of 2 fucking moons of plastic into the ocean. 2 moons. And so, and it's not slowing down. What's crazy about it is every year we create more plastic.
Yeah, where's it going? I mean, obviously it's...
Well, we're putting 123,000 jumbo jets of plastic in the ocean every year.
That is nuts, man.
All of us. And so I started getting into it and I just became obsessed with it. And 4 months ago, I went completely plastic free. I won't buy any food in plastic, nothing. And we have to go there. So the first thing I learned was aluminum is amazing. 84% of the aluminum ever produced is still being used today because aluminum, unlike plastic, can keep getting recycled. They melt it down, you can make another bottle, melt it down, make another bottle. Only 5% of plastic has ever been recycled. So we've all been lying to ourselves forever, saying, oh, I'm just putting it in that blue bin, I can feel good about it, warm and fuzzy, doing the right thing. Plastic sucks. And the reason why there's plastic all over our environment is because it has no value. Plastic is super cheap to produce. It has no value because it barely can be reused. So it just ends up scattered all over our environment, in our streets, in our parks, in trees, in the oceans, killing off millions of animals in the ocean every year. It's horrible. So aluminum, we moved all of the shampoos and body washes and conditioners over to aluminum. We did create 2 Alpine bar soaps, which I'm pretty excited about. And the deodorant tubes, actually I can show you one because we're just starting to get these in. Super simple. It's a paper tube.
It's awesome.
And you just push it up. Everyone's used a push pop before. Boom. Done. Take the cap, push it back down, put the cap back on, and you're done. Super simple to use. Why the hell are we using plastic deodorant? The worst thing about plastic deodorant, and I'm outing myself because we create deodorants in these right now, is they can't be recycled at all because anything with a movable part can't be recycled.
So aluminum, right? Like, so your shampoo or soap or whatever, like, is it like somewhat of a, and I haven't seen the packaging yet. So I'm assuming aluminum, like kind of like a beer can.
Well, it's actually a lot cooler than that. It's this really cool company that makes hard-sided aluminum bottles. This is the travel.
So it's just like a travel.
Yeah, but this is the small one. I don't have a big one with me, but they're beer cans. You can crush them with your hand. That really wouldn't work with body care. So we created these hard-sided ones with a little bit more of a design element, and they're direct transferred. So they're printed just like with all of our.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that logo.
Thank you. Well,
so do they all change? Like.
Yeah. So every scent has a different animal.
Oh, it's all. How do you choose the animal?
Just another psychedelic journey.
So, all right.
There's 6 animals that live on my property here. So there's a mountain lion, there's a fox, there's an owl. There is a bighorn sheep, which actually does not live on this property, but does live in the mountains above me. And there's a kestrel, which is a small hawk. And then there's a buck.
So how much clarity are you getting when you go on these psychedelic journeys?
I mean, I get a lot of clarity. This is how I create things, and it's like moving the obstacles out of the way to see clearly what your vision is. Like, what are you going to bring to the world?
That is amazing. Yeah, I just recently had a shaman on my podcast. He was talking about his ceremonies with ayahuasca, and he's in Peru, and shout out to him, because it's becoming more mainstream than what it used to be, right? Obviously, everyone wants to see visions. Everyone wants to transcend. They want to get clarity, more creativity, and it's becoming a little bit more mainstream. But since you've done it, why don't you give me a little insight on that? Like, what do you experience when you take the medication or medicine or whatever?
I mean, the first thing you kind of experience is, it's kind of like a lack of self. And it's the first time that you really, or for me, I mean, everyone has their own unique experience. For me, it was the first time I realized that we 100% are all connected, and not just connected to each other, but connected to plants and animals and the oxygen around us and water and the oceans. And once you have that realization, it's hard to look at the world the same way again.
Well, each time you've had this realization, is it the same time, like same thing? Like, I mean, once you have it, you're kind of like, oh crap, oh shit, like, all right, that was a cool experience. And then you have it again, and it's like, well, that's the same. And then 3, and it's like, okay, well, there's a pattern here, right?
It's never the same.
Never the same, but same concept that we're all connected.
Yeah, but then it ends up becoming just part of you. So it's not like you go into it and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot, we're all connected.
Yeah.
And I need to take this thing to realize it. I mean, the whole idea is that you're not taking that anymore to realize it.
Sure.
You're just taking it to experience somebody or some place or some idea in a different capacity.
A higher consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's not like a better than now moment, and it's kind of the whole concept around we are all one. So it's not like, oh, I take this thing and I had this experience, so I know more than you. It's like, I had this experience, I took this thing, I am part of you.
You remember who you are.
Well, you remember who you are in that moment, but forever, and you have to carry that with you. So it really helps you understand the concept of do no harm. Try to do no harm.
Love all, right?
And I take the path of clarity to help the world see this moment in a different way. And it's kind of like this experience we're in right now with the coronavirus. And I was writing the other day and I was like, look, every single person deals with trauma differently. And you can't walk into the world, and if you're one of these people who's like, I'm not fearing anything, and I'm just going to stay healthy and work and put my head down, and I don't have anxiety around this. You can't like walk into a room and expect all the people around you to have that same experience, just like they can't walk into a room and expect to have you to have the same experience, because that's when conflict arises. That when we take what's going on in our body and our mind and our hearts and expect everyone else to have the same thing, because no way we're all going to have the same experience. You have to meet people where they are.
Sure. No, absolutely. You have to. Have you ever experienced the higher consciousness, the universe, a God? The definition of what we think of God?
No, the closest thing I've ever experienced in that realm is I was on a meditative journey, and my entire body disappeared for about 4.5 hours. And when I say that, my only recollection was an energetic field floating through space and feeling the universe around me in a way that I never had. And kind of just absorbing fields of energy and information instead of seeing it. It's kind of hard to explain. I've been trying to explain it to people for years, but it's so abstract.
We can't put that into words.
Yeah, like the second you asked me, I had the image and the feeling go throughout my body. My hairs on my arms stood up.
Whoa.
It was such an amazing experience.
What was the feeling of love?
It was just, it's kind of like there were no words around it. You know, like when I was in that zone, there wasn't even I'm going to identify this thing with this word. Like words fail the best of conversations. Words were failing what was happening to me.
That's powerful, man. That's so powerful. How has that made you, like when you come back to reality where we're at now in this dimension?
I never came back. I never came back. I'm still there.
That's awesome. Well, how does it affect you as far as running your company?
It's playing two different roles all the time, you know, like you have to do the best job you can to play the role that you need to play in the moment to get your vision done. I can't say that I am the biggest fan of business and corporations and economic standards, but what I do love is the human connection that I have with, you know, like one of my staff has been with me for 14 years. You know, Josh Ivey, who designs all of our packaging. It's like we've gotten to a point where we're so in sync that I can just say something and he whips it out in 20 minutes. He's like, "You mean like this?" You know? And I love being able to see how inspired people get around the work we're doing together as a group. And then I love seeing people out in the world see what we've created and rally around it. Like this plastic-free movement, it's been amazing because, you know, Ivy put this amazing digital rendering together, and I started traveling around and meeting with buyers of some of the biggest store chains in the world. And they're like, "This is incredible. How soon can we get it? Our customers have been asking us for years. And we have not gotten one no yet." So this vision that I had a couple years ago in Joshua Tree is literally now going to be diverting millions and millions of bottles away from the ocean. And what's even more important than that is that the fringe predicts the future. Right now, this seems like the fringe. In 4 years, you're going to be looking at an entire store full of aluminum bottles and be like, that guy, that guy told me that this was going to happen. And boom, here we are. That's the part I love, is because the fringe does predict the future. Whatever's on the fringe now is going to become mainstream. It's the rationale of human existence. It's how we have progressed for years and years. And the consciousness around how our consumerism is impacting the world is growing at such a rapid rate. It's amazing. You know, the younger the generations, the more in tune they are about what's going on and why is this in plastic and why can't I reuse this, and do I even need to buy this at all? Do I need to consume?
Yeah. I think what I'm taking from this conversation is a lot of great value. It is, your story is so phenomenally like different than everyone else. Like you've chosen paths that are just so uncommon, and you're not afraid to go out there and try new things, where a lot of people, especially myself and people that are listening to this podcast, we've taken the most comfortable road because we're scared of going outside of that. We're scared of what the unknown brings. And I love talking to people like you. I love being able to bring you on the show and and demonstrate what true bravery is, right? Like someone to go out and take that leap of faith, someone who's going to go to Tokyo, someone who's going to go to Bangkok and do all these different things and take those experiences and just build on that. Like you didn't have this idea when you were traveling the world. Like it just happened. And I think a lot of the fear that everyone has in America is just assumed. It's not really experience. It's like we all assume that something bad's going to happen if we do this or that. Like you just have to do it. And then something else will happen while you do it to point you in a different direction, right? Like I'm scared to start my own business. Well, just do something. Take one step towards that direction and something will appear and guide you further down the path. And you're like the perfect example of that.
Get busy living or get busy dying.
Like action. It's all about action. It's like, I don't know about you, but I feel like whenever I don't know something, like all I have to do is just act on it, right? Like I just have to start researching it. Like I have to open a book up and start looking for an answer. And then that answer takes me into a different direction. And I start researching that question. And it's like, it's all connected. I don't know if you've experienced, I mean, you've been all over the world. Like I know there have been times in your life where you didn't know the answer, but you just acted on it. And now look where you're at.
I would say more often than not, I don't know the answer, and admitting that is what leads to a different viewpoint, a wider view of what's going on. The second you're like, oh, I know this. This is what happens. I don't know this.
So did you dropped out did you graduate high school?
No, I did not.
So you didn't graduate high school. And look where you're at now. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter, like the education system right now, like it's just all like a resume builder. Like you don't need it. Like it's all about experience. I mean, it helped me in the sense that I needed that foundation. I needed to be introduced to certain things in my life to kind of build upon the last thing, where you are the type of person that builds on experiences. And a lot of people are like that too, where you learn by experience, you learn by, trial and error. And you've been able to, produce this product that is going to be changing the world. And you didn't have to graduate high school. It was, you went out and you did something and you followed your heart, you followed your gut, you followed your instinct, and you just kept failing and failing and failing until you got to where you're at today. And I talk to people all the time, man, especially on the show. They message me, they write me, and they talk about, they always want to talk about first steps and where to go. And it's like, I try to emphasize this all the time. It doesn't matter where you go. You just have to take that step, that gut feeling step in the direction that you feel like is right. And then you go off of that. And then you go off of that. And you go off of that. And you go off of that. There is no book that is written that is going to guide you along your life. Like you said earlier in the interview, it's all different. Like every person is different. Every experience is different. And like your path right now, man, like you're doing big things. Like, I mean,
yeah, but you realize like the whole circle, and to bring back to what we're talking about, is you are an intricate part of this, because how many people every day say, oh, I want to start a podcast and interview people. Millions of people say that. In my own life, I've heard so many people say that. But at some point you're like, I'm going to start a podcast, and you bought your mic and you got your headphones and you closed off your room to your family and you made that first step.
Yeah.
And I bet you can tell me exactly who the first person it was that you interviewed.
Yeah, man. It was my boy, Bryce. Shout out to him. He's in New York.
See, you remember it because that was that moment where you did the thing you kept talking about. And now you're talking to me, and you're part of the circle that we're both creating. The word out about something that is so important for the world to hear about.
Like you were saying earlier, we're all connected. There's all
no difference between you and me. It's like, yeah, I took this other path, this other thing, but we're both here right now.
That isn't, I mean, you're right. I mean, like you said earlier, I mean, we're all connected. We're all connected on the same level. And I mean, dude, I love having conversations like this. Like I love connecting with you. Like we would have never, like if I hadn't started the podcast, if you hadn't started your business, like we would have never have come together tonight, had an amazing conversation, help people out, put your product out there, bring awareness to that. And I mean, like, your mission is legit. Like I've always looked for, body wash, soap that is like organic, natural. Like, I use the big brand names because it's like, that's all that's out there. And it's like, you are, basically you are what you put on your body. I always talk about diet. You are what you eat. Same thing with soaps. Same thing with deodorant. You put this stuff on you and it seeps into your pores. You are what you're putting into your body. And it's like, you think about the cancers and things that are associated with all this toxins that you have in your body. It's not just diet. It's the products that you use to gel your hair, to get it looking slick and cut and everything. That's all great. And you know what I mean? Like, everything that you use is working against you in some way, like some fashion. There's some type of chemical in it, man. And I applaud you for trying to make me smell better and make me live longer. Thank you, brother.
It's my pleasure. Happy to help.
Oh, man. But I mean, your story's so nuts, man. Like, what, like, in all seriousness, you are worldly. You are 100% worldly in mindset and mind frame. Like, what has been the biggest lesson? I mean, the biggest fucking lesson that you have learned thus far?
The biggest lesson.
And I know it's big. I know that's a big question, but it's like, I mean, you've done it all. You sold fucking fake IDs. You sold fake Rolexes. You've been in Tokyo. You've been in Bangkok. I
would say that, like, my biggest downfall is that I have always been very judgmental. That being said, I've also spent the last 20 years trying to not be judgmental. So there's these moments, these epiphanies that you have, not just traveling, but just out in the world. And you're faced with this moment where you hear someone say, everyone has a political view, everyone has an opinion, everyone has the truth. And I always say this to myself in my own head when I'm in that circumstance. I said, there's three truths in the world. There's your truth, there's my truth, and there's ultimate truth. And you know what ultimate truth is? This is an aluminum bottle. This is a glass of water. This is a table. Everything else is our own bullshit. It's like all these ideas and concepts, and it's good to form opinions. But the second you let your opinion get in the way of your humanness, of your want to connect with someone on a deeper level, you failed. Because it doesn't matter how incredibly audacious you think someone's viewpoint is. The second you shut it down, you've lost that connection. You've lost the ability to connect with that person in any way possible. And we've all failed. We've all lost. And so it's the one thing that challenges me every day, and I admit it. Like, I am a judgmental person, but I have these tools in place to help me not be judgmental as much as possible.
What's the first thing you do when you find yourself judgmental?
I have that internal conversation.
Yeah.
I say, do you want to have a real human experience right now, or do you want to have a non-human experience right now? Because the human experience I want to have is I want to take the time to understand where this person's at and what makes them feel this way. And you can understand that by it's like opening yourself up to all of the things that they have been through in their life. Painful childhood, trauma, maybe they're in the war, maybe someone hurt them so bad that they formed this viewpoint. And if you don't take the time to understand someone as an entire person, you're never, ever, ever going to even come close to getting them to see your viewpoint. Because the second you say, I'm right and you're wrong, guaranteed they will never, ever believe you. Ever.
That's funny you say that, because I'm reading this book right now. It's called The Righteous Mind, and it talks about that, like why good people are divided by politics and religion. It's a lot about like what we feel first when someone is in a conversation. Like it's, what was it? Socrates thought that, or Socrates thought that we were reason driven when we're actually emotionally driven first. Like everything that we, like when we're having a conversation, the first thing that I feel is emotion, and then it's the reason, and then it's to morality. And the reason why we can't talk to each other about politics is because of the emotion that's attached to it. Like in order for me to change your viewpoint on how you're going to vote, or for how you're going to, your viewpoint on politics, is I have to relate to you first. Like I have to think about your viewpoints and put myself in your shoes before I can even try to do that. Like I have to, he calls it the elephant, the elephant is the emotion, and the rider is the reason, the brain, and the elephant is always guiding the rider in whatever direction. So if you say something that I don't like, the elephant's going to go left, the rider's going to go left, because he follows the elephant. The reason doesn't guide us. It's the emotion, and everything that I say, everything that you say is based off emotion. And if I want to change your viewpoint, I have to but I have to understand the elephant and what makes it move. And I have to be able to put myself in your shoes, and I have to kind of calm the elephant a little bit and just say, hey, I understand what you're talking about, and that's great. I have to calm him down and say, all right, but here's my viewpoint. Where a lot of people get offensive, they get triggered by certain things all automatically off, out of the gate. And that puts everyone on the defense, and you can't reach someone. You can't reach people if all their elephants are like, fired up and, running amok. You're just not going to be able to do it. So my advice to those listening right now is put yourself in other people's shoes, try to understand where they're coming from, and like, just, relate a little bit. I know it's hard sometimes. It's fucking hard for me, trust me, because I'm that type of guy. Like, I used to be like, if you don't, I wear my heart on my sleeve. If you didn't believe the things that I believed, then I thought there was something seriously fucking wrong with you. But the more that I, that I really, and in the 2 years I've been doing this podcast, like I've really grown. Like, I'm studying religions, I'm studying Zen, I'm studying Buddha, I'm studying all these different things, enlightenment, and I'm transformed, and I'm getting to where you're at, and understanding that people are all connected, and, trying to, just have a conversation with fucking somebody, like you are so interesting to me, and being able to connect with you is my dharma. It is my life's calling, and I don't give a fuck what happens after this conversation. We've connected on a level that is higher than both of us.
I agree.
I don't know if any of that makes sense, but I appreciate you, brother.
Likewise, the feeling's mutual.
But we're coming up on that hour. So lastly, what I want to ask you is, there's two things. So how can people connect with you?
I would say the most active channel I have is Instagram. I don't post a lot, but I try to take my time to write little snippets of what I'm thinking about in that moment, or things I'm working on with work, or I cook a lot, so I post sometimes.
What's your IG handle?
It's joshua.scott.onysko, Onysko.
Nice. And lastly, it's kind of the big question, man. It's gotten a lot of people fucked up. What do you want your legacy to be when it's all said and done?
Well, this is it. I mean, Alpine Provisions was that moment where I had turned 40, and I was like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? What's the legacy I want to leave behind? And that legacy was that I wanted to create the scholarship fund, so that any kid who really wants to experience nature and have that first aha moment can apply for the Alpine Provisions Scholarship Fund. And I'm, right now I'm super proud about that. And, everything else is great. Like, I love that we're going to inspire a plastic-free revolution. It's going to hit so hard this summer, and I'm so excited to help other brands go plastic-free as well, and inspire other people to go plastic-free. It's an eye-opening adventure to just say, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not using plastic anymore. Just say no. Just say no to plastic.
Fucking A, man. Say no to plastic. You've heard it here first. Joshua, man, this has been amazing, man. Like, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you so much. I know you're a busy guy, you know, doing what you're doing over there, making soap, changing lives, saying fuck you to plastic. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
I want to say thank you to Josh for hanging out with us today and dropping some knowledge on us. I loved every second of this interview, and I hope you guys do too. Again, if you guys want to follow the show, you can do that by going to yoursuperiorself.com. Leave me a message. You can follow and subscribe over there as well. Clicking on the link, you can, if you could, please leave a rating and a review wherever you get your podcast from. It helps me scale the podcast. It helps me get this out to those who may need it. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I enjoyed every second. Thank you guys, and I'll talk to you later.